You're live.
Jim, good morning.
Good morning.
A topic that seems to be cross-cultural, universal, transgenerational, this area of romance. Now in your late 90s, give us some wisdom on this topic that's so dear to our hearts and yet at times seems so confusing.
Okay, we'll look into it, and most of the scriptural illustrations will come out of the Song of Solomon. Now, somebody has said, love is such a strong human emotion and so controls and regulates activities that if God didn't major in it in the Bible, you could have reason to question if he wrote the Bible, because he's not going to ignore, the strongest human passion that exists. So, King Solomon made a summary of his thoughts on it in the book of Ecclesiastes, and he made these statements. First is that love is as strong as death. He also said, many waters cannot quench love. And he also observed, trying to use wealth to obtain love will only bring scorn. King Lemuel, the writer of Proverbs 30, said there's four things I can't understand. One is how an eagle heavier than air can fly, how a small rudder can control a ship direction, how a snake can get traction with no legs. And then he said, but over and above that is the chemistry that takes place between a man and a woman. When romance gets in there, I just don't understand this. Well, there's a Swiss psychologist pretty well known by the name of Tournier, and he asked his theological friends, what does it mean in the Bible that God took Adam's rib and made woman out of it? Now, I don't know where they got this, and probably can't substantiate it, but it makes a good place to take off. They said what this really means, that God took Adam's personality and cut it in two, and put half of it in Eve and kept half. So each is only a half person, from that time on. So there's a force that I like to refer to as horizontal gravity. And whenever a man and a woman get in a certain proximity, the two halves try to get back together. So that force is just there, operation, almost as strong and obvious as gravity. Well, Tennyson's some great poems, and some people have perverted a little bit. And one of his poems says that in springtime, a young man's fancy turns to love. But somebody took the poem and said, in springtime, a young man's fancy turns to what the girls have been thinking about all winter. So this is a topic of interest. Now, what makes it that way, after God had made Adam, he saw that he wasn't complete. And so I think he envisioned maybe the half in there. So that's really the reason he made Eve, so that Adam's life could be complete. So if we use that as a takeoff point, why a man or woman's life is not complete. until the other half is there. Now there's most of world history, there have been more women than men. So it doesn't mean that a person that doesn't get married is a second-class citizen. God supplies that completeness from other sources, but that's a normal part of becoming complete. So in the romance approach, I think there are two questions that need to be addressed. The first is, how do you discover the right person to make your life complete? And the second, how about the right time, the right person, and the right time? Anything that has 5 points can be adjusted as a hand illustration. So in discussing this question as the right person, there are 5 points. So it lends itself easily to a hand illustration. Now my left hand is out of commission right now, so I can't use it, but I can enumerate what the fingers stand for. So the first thing that comes into the picture, illustrated by the little finger, is what I call awareness. And young man, young woman know a lot of people of the opposite sex, but they're in a room and there's always one person they're more aware of than any other person. And they may not even know the other person's name. But if the other person is there, they're happy inside. If they're not there, they're unhappy inside. Because somehow that room full of people just don't mean anything unless that one person is there. So you become more aware of one person than any other. I was talking to one of our young men once. He felt maybe God was leading him to get a life partner. And I said, well, is there anyone of whom you're particularly aware that you're glad when you go in the room that she's there, or you're sad if she isn't there? And he was a pretty fast thinker and talker, and he said, well, there's about 5 of them. And I just let him talk, and he said, no, well, no, there's really only 2. And then he let that sink a little bit, and he said, oh, there's only 1, I'm gonna call her tonight. And so he could pretty easily settle down, to just the 1. Okay, the first stage, the little finger represents awareness. Now, if awareness persists, you find some way to get better acquainted. You want to be around that person more. Well, I think most people think of getting acquainted is exchanging personal and biographical information. Family, personal. So you get together, talk about how many brothers and sisters you have, and your mother and father, and where you went to school. You can exhaust your total family history in maybe 6 to 8 hours. So that's not what getting acquainted is. What getting acquainted is that every young man, every young woman, both consciously and subconsciously, has formed a profile of the kind of the person they want to spend the rest of their life with. So getting acquainted is really comparing the person with the profile. Now, every young guy wants his universe as his partner. And every young woman wants Mr. Prince Charming. So they start with that profile and begin to make compromises. Now, everybody can have Miss Universe or Mr. Prince Charming. So they look for value system compatibility. And the more they find value system compatibility, the more they begin to respect one another. So to respect really means I just generally approve of everything I run across. You know, the more I get to know about you, the more I respect you. So the second step is respect. Now the foundation of a relationship is mutual respect. And if mutual respect cannot be established, there's really no future to the relationship. That's in the illustration, that next finger representing respect should be a foot long, because that's the foundation of the whole relationship. And that is true in any relationship. Actually, your best friend is probably the one you respect the most. You know, it's the foundation of a relationship. So if in comparing value systems, you find a large area of compatibility, respect begins to grow, and then the emotions start coming in as admiration comes in. So if there are two roommates in college, and one of them is in this stage and the other isn't, all he wants to do is brag about his girlfriend. You know. And the other guy said, well, she's no different from anybody else, you know. You might even pick up a few negative things. But the guy and the gal are blind at that point, and they see only the good points in the other person. So the third phase that develops on the next finger is admiration. Now, these things kind of run together, overlap, run together. You can't tell when one leaves off the other begins, but you can look back and identify them. The next one is affection. And now the emotions come in strongly. And the best way that I can describe what I mean by affection, I've known lots of hardline guys that never wasted a moment of their life. They were always reading or praying or meeting with somebody. Then all of a sudden they take a Saturday afternoon off to spend with a girl who's already a mature Christian. They try to explain that to their friends. So behavior becomes somewhat illogical at that point in their relationship with everybody, you know, just it looks like their priorities are just, they lost them all, you know, in here. Well, then getting beyond this, between the index finger and the thumb, there's what King Lemuel was talking about. And he said, I don't understand the chemistry that takes place between a man and a woman. We have a staff couple recently retired that she went to medical school, did a year's internship, licensed to practice medicine, fell in love with a staff member, got married, and she's never practiced medicine in her life. What can throw you off a career like that, you know? Let me say, I can understand. This takes place between a man and a woman. So at this point, the best way to describe behavior is that it becomes irrational. One of the greatest stories in the last century has been the story of Prince Edward, the Prince of Wales. He never got married, and probably the Prince of Wales, until he gets married, is the most eligible bachelor in the world. Probably not a mother that wouldn't like to see her son or daughter hook up with the Prince of Wales, you know. But Edward, his brother died, And he'd been trained to be the king, and so he became the king. And then he decided she get married. So he had a woman he was in love with, who was an American, and she was divorced. Her name was Warfield Wallace. And so he said, okay, we'll get married and she'll be the queen here. Well, in England, there's some vetoing power by the Parliament and the Prime Minister and the head of the church, and they can regulate who the king marries. So they said there's no way that you can marry this woman to be the Queen of England. So Edward, after he was crowned king, served for a little over a year, and they told him, you can't marry her. He did something that's never been done in British history, or maybe any other royal family. He abdicated the throne. So a year or so after he was crowned King of England, he abdicated and his older brother took over. He'd never been trained to be the king. And of course he is Queen Elizabeth's father, the present Queen of England. But it was never that lineage that was supposed to inherit. Well, in explaining his action, which was pretty irrational, King Edward said, I cannot bear the heavy responsibilities of this office without the woman that I love at my side. Don't give me the woman I love, you can have your throne. Give it back to him. Give it back. So behavior is kind of irrational. After I fell in love with Marina, I tried to get more free time off the ship to be with her. And the Navy wasn't exactly cooperative. Now, I was in a position I got a lot of special privileges. But the thought entered my mind once, the Navy's not going to interfere with my romance. And if they try to interfere, I'll desert. You know, they can't tell me what to do. And I hope I wouldn't have done it, but I considered it. Because behavior is very irrational. Throughout the world, I've visited much of it. I find what they call in many countries a lover's leap. And that's for some reason, two people couldn't spend the rest of their lives together. So they decided to commit suicide together. You know, if we can't spend our lives together, life isn't worth living. So that's what happened when love takes hold. In counseling people sometimes, you know, I'm sure where they stand, and I say, are you in love? And they say, well, I'm not sure. And I said, then you're not. Very simple. No such thing as being in love and not knowing it. So that catalyst that Lemuel spoke about takes place, you know, someplace between the illogical behavior and then their irrational. So Solomon said, many waters cannot quench love, it's stronger than death. Now this is illustrated in the Song of Solomon. 55% of the Song of Solomon is dialogue between a Shilmite woman and her shepherd lover. And the Thompson Chain Reference Bible has a terrific outline, and they think it's based on a true story. And the true story was that Solomon went up into the mountains of Syria during the summertime to escape the heat of Israel and had his summer council up there. So apparently he got called on to crown Miss Universe. And so he did the ceremony, and then he told his temple woman I want her for my harem.
Hmm.
So they sent a delegation out to talk to the Shulamite. And she said, I'm not interested. I'm in love with the shepherd. Well, the shepherd got word that Solomon was dickering with her, to add to his harem. So they got together and he said, what's this? So she reassured him, man, you're the only one that I love. And in the Song of Solomon, there are words of some of our great hymns. His banner over me is love. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. That in these 55% dialogue, it's mostly as they reassure each other that nothing can come between us. In fact, she refused to go, so when he went back down to Jerusalem, he sent some soldiers out, they got her, took her captive. So he came down and they sneaked through the windows and talked, found that she escaped. The soldiers got her out, captured her, brought her back, beat her up, told her not to do that again. And then Solomon, people disagree as to what that great 8th chapter in the Song of Solomon is about. But I think it was Solomon making his final pitch to the Shulamite. And he told her, you're the, how beautiful she was, he really gave her a pitch. And she said, no thanks. And that's when he said, many waters cannot quench love. Love is stronger than death. And his own bitter experience was, though a man would offer all his substance for love, he would utterly be scorned. So he was squirming his own defeat, that all the resources he had as a king could not win her love over. Now, the Song of Solomon has to be used with some caution. The Jews don't allow their kids to read it till they're 18. It is so intimate in all the details of their conversation. But a couple of applications we can draw. I've attended a lot of marriage seminars. Sometimes you get 32 points, how to improve your marriage. I can't remember 32 things. So I refer people to Song of Solomon. And the secret of their relationship with these two was they exhausted their vocabulary, creatively expressing love for each other. And that's all you need to do to improve the marriage. Just imitate what they did, follow the Bible in that. Now, our culture, Western culture, is different from historical culture. So in most cultures, the parents select the bride. So their first official relationship is a marriage ceremony. And then there's a physical union. And then an emotional bonding. That's the order generally of many family-oriented cultures. In the Western culture, it generally starts with an emotional infatuation. And then there's a ceremony, and then the physical union. But what happens? The emotional leads to the physical, and then the legal is the last part of it in there sometimes. So we've got the wrong order. In that, I think, by the way it works out, been some books written on this, but I think the right order, the biblical order, is emotional, legal, physical. But our culture doesn't carry that out. Right. So when I think about a relationship, after two people become engaged, why start spending time together. And that drive for closeness is so great. The only way it can be satisfied is through physical union. I learned this from a Catholic priest. He said, if two engaged persons spend a lot of time together, they will inevitably compromise their own standards for their conduct. So I'm against long engagements. And once that it's clear that two people have met with each other, go ahead and get married. No, long engagements they're very testing. One of the reasons is if they compromise their values during the engagement, then respect is undermined. So the very foundation on which you're trying to build a lifetime relationship is undermined right at the beginning. So this is a very important area, I think. Well, this is designed to help define the right person. And the steps, as I see it, are awareness, respect, admiration, affection, and then total involvement comes to that. As for the right time, it's not all that romantic. It has to do with objectives. So you may discover the right person before you discover the right time. For example, if the objective of both is to pay off their college loans, two could live as cheap as one, half as long. So that probably isn't the solution in that. So Ron, those are kind of my random thoughts on romance. And I have a number of essays I distribute. This one is requested more than all the rest of them put together.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I probably send out 2 or 3 a week on this. So do you have any questions for clarification?
Jim, yes, for unmarried young people, how would you encourage them if they have in the past to some degree become very involved in a relationship, maybe even divorced, got married and divorced? How would you encourage them to rebuild their own confidence in themselves and God, and to redirect their lives to apply these principles which now they realize they had erred in the past?
Great question. And if I'm talking to a couple that their marriage is in trouble, I ask each one of them, what was it that you respected the most about this person? Spend some time on it. Make a list of what you respected. And after we've got the 2 lists, what undermined that respect? Now, generally, it was the behavior of the other one, what undermined the respect. And the next question is, can it be restored? Can you go back and restore it again? And we discuss that. And if they say no, it can't, or they're unwilling, I just give up. No future for the relationship. Because the permanent relationship is mutual respect. It's been pointed out that every other relationship in a marriage, physical, emotional, fades with time. respect grows with time.
Hmm.
Somebody told me once that if you marry the right person, you'll still be discovering reasons 50 years after you're married why God gave you that particular person.
Hmm.
So that's very important, but it's based on respect. Now, I warn couples often that the biggest challenge in their married life will probably be not to undermine their partner's respect. I give an example. I think it drives it home. My wife was always a little bit overweight for the rest of her body and very sensitive about it. So I found out, and I never knew during our 67 years of marriage. what her weight was.
67.
67 years. I never knew what her weight was. I never fudged and looked at her driver's license because I didn't want to know. Because I felt if I pressed that issue, I would undermine her respect for me. So that's generally where relationships, that's where the trouble starts. One's behavior undermines the other's respect for them.
Hmm.
So this is a lifetime challenge to maintain mutual respect.
Hmm. So maybe one last question then, in applying that to singles who aren't married, what would be some ways in our culture that they could really identify if they deeply respect this person enough to marry them? So possibly their emotions are high and some other factors, but does a person need to know that they can respect this person for life before they say, I do?
Yes, if they don't, they're in trouble. Now, this is a reason that teenager marriages are hard to work out, because neither one of the teenagers has a defined value system.
Mm.
So when they develop one, and they take a look and find out the other person, they don't have one. So you build it on infatuation, not on respect. So people has to be trouble and be cautious that they don't build a relationship on just the infatuation with each other. There's got to be that respect behind it, because everything else will wear out except the respect. Now, the emotion is so strong that it needs to be pursued with caution. Otherwise, this chemistry happens before the respect is developed.
Mm-hmm.
And then the marriage may be in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, Jim, why don't you just close this out for us and pray that God will use these truths in many people's lives around the world.
Okay, and let me put it in context. Dr. Edmund, president of Wheaton College, gave his life study to what starts revival.
Mm.
What is the chemistry where revival breaks out? So he concluded, after a lifetime of study, when two or more people get right with each other and with God, revival breaks out on that spot.
Mm.
Now, if that is true, what two people should be right with each other more than a husband and wife? So if that logic follows through, if revival isn't going on in the world, we lay at the doorstep of couples who are not right with each other and with God. And of course, Dr. Edmund had it in the right sequence, because Jesus said, if you got anything against your brother, don't come to the altar. Go make it right. I don't want to see you until you got things right here. So we can pray in that background.
Okay.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for the being the architect and inventor of love and human relationships and completeness. And the greatest gift, other than salvation, you've given to any of us is a life partner. And we pray that we'll just be able to build on it and maximize it, not only for our personal enjoyment, but for the spread of the gospel and to make the world known of you and your creativity and your goodness and your desire for our fulfillment and completeness. In Jesus' name, amen.